In recent years, K-pop has become obsessed with selling hip-hop as an image rather than a craft, and nowhere is that more obvious than in how certain rookie groups are being packaged today. Audiences were quick to cancel one group for a single live stream filled with offensive stereotypes, yet strangely silent when another group builds an entire identity around the same caricature, just wrapped in a bigger budget and sharper visuals. This contradiction exposes a deeper problem inside the industry. K-pop morality is not about principles, it is about convenience. Fans react when outrage is easy, when a clip is short, when blame is clean, and when their own favorites remain untouched. One mistake becomes a scandal, but an entire concept built on borrowed culture gets normalized as artistry. The issue has never been about fashion alone. Baggy pants, streetwear, or edgy styling are not crimes. What raises alarms is when idols are trained to equate hip-hop with aggressive facial expressions, stiff shoulders, constant hand gestures, and a manufactured toughness that mimics Western rap stereotypes without understanding their roots. This isn't homage, and it isn't appreciation. It's performance-level cosplay, where blackness and street culture are treated like props to Project Rebellion and swagger. When this becomes a brand strategy rather than a slip-up, it stops being ignorance and starts being intentional. A single live stream can be dismissed as immaturity or bad judgment, but a repeated pattern across music videos, stages, and social content tells a different story. It reveals an industry that knows these visuals sell globally, even if they flatten an entire culture into a few recognizable signals. And once fans accept that as a group's vibe, criticism is reframed as hate, not accountability. This is where the conversation truly begins. Because what looks like a simple concept choice is actually a reflection of how K-pop continues to profit from the surface of hip-hop while avoiding its substance. If you want to understand why this pattern keeps repeating, why Backlash feels uneven, and why fandoms defend it so fiercely, stay with me. Subscribe, follow the channel, and keep watching, because this story goes much deeper than one group or one scandal. The uneven backlash surrounding hip-hop controversies in K-pop is not accidental, and it has very little to do with ethics. It is driven by how easily outrage can be packaged and consumed. When a scandal is tied to one moment, one clip, and one clear headline, the internet moves fast. People share it, react to it, demand apologies, and feel morally accomplished by the end of the cycle. That kind of controversy is simple. It doesn't require deeper thinking or uncomfortable conversations about branding, systems, or long-term exploitation. It offers a clean villain and a quick resolution. But when the problem is structural, when it is embedded into a group's entire concept, styling, and performance language, the reaction becomes complicated. Fans are no longer reacting to an incident, they are being asked to question why they support something in the first place. That is where resistance kicks in. A concept built on hip-hop stereotypes doesn't live in one viral moment. It lives in repeated gestures, recurring imagery, and a performance identity that markets aggression as authenticity. Over time, this repetition desensitizes audiences. What once might have raised eyebrows becomes normal, even defended, simply because it is familiar. There is also a clear gender imbalance in how punishment is distributed. Girl groups are scrutinized faster, judged harsher, and expected to perform public remorse on demand. Apologies become entertainment, dissected for sincerity and tone, as if there is a scoreboard for humiliation. Boy groups, especially those marketed as edgy or self-produced, are granted more grace. Their controversies are reframed as artistic choices, misunderstood concepts, or proof of how bold and fearless they are. This selective accountability reveals an uncomfortable truth. K-pop fandom culture does not operate on consistent values. It operates on loyalty, convenience, and image protection. As long as a group's entire brand depends on hip-hop aesthetics, calling it out feels like an attack on the fans themselves. And once appropriation becomes routine, it stops being seen as a problem at all. The most damaging part of K-pop's obsession with hip-hop imagery is how it reduces an entire genre into a set of exaggerated behaviors. Real hip-hop is built on rhythm, storytelling, phrasing, community, and history. What K-pop often borrows is none of that. Instead, it copies the outer shell, the scowls, the hunched shoulders, the constant hands in frame, the aggressive pacing, the half-hidden faces, and the implication of danger. These signals are instantly readable to a global audience, which is exactly why companies rely on them. They communicate cool, without requiring actual musical depth. This is why the line between inspiration and caricature keeps getting crossed. When idols are coached to move, gesture, and emote like a stereotype rather than develop musical command, the performance becomes hollow. Swagger is treated as something you wear, not something you earn. The result is a visual performance that looks intense but collapses under real scrutiny. Once the music strips away the styling, what's left often exposes weak breath control, unstable rhythm, and phrasing that slides around instead of locking into the beat. Hand signs and coded gestures are where this problem becomes especially uncomfortable. Even when defenders insist there was no harmful intent, intent does not erase impact. These symbols come from real environments shaped by violence, poverty, and surveillance. When idols reproduce them for aesthetics, it turns lived realities into stage props. The argument that something was not meant that way only proves how detached the performance is from understanding. It shows how easily someone can borrow imagery without respecting the weight behind it. Over time, fans stop seeing these choices as mimicry and start calling them personality. Aggression becomes charisma. Posturing becomes presence. And anyone pointing out the difference between performance and parody is dismissed as overly sensitive or anti-fun. This is how the industry trains audiences to accept shortcuts as artistry, and why the same hollow template keeps spreading from one debut to the next. What makes this cycle so difficult to break is that it is profitable. K-pop companies have learned that hip-hop aesthetics function as a shortcut, a prepackaged signal that promises intensity, rebellion, and edge without demanding long-term artistic development. Instead of investing in musical training, cultural literacy, or authentic collaboration, they rely on visuals that are instantly recognizable and easily defended. A mask here, a scowl there, a few aggressive gestures, and suddenly an entire group is framed as powerful and dangerous, even when the music itself says otherwise. This approach becomes especially troubling when applied to younger idols. Executives design concepts built on adult fantasies of toughness and rebellion, then place those expectations onto teenagers who are still forming their identities. These idols are taught to perform exaggerated masculinity and street-coded attitudes because it sells excitement without requiring maturity. Fans are then trained to interpret this performance as talent, confusing loudness and aggression for skill. The more exaggerated the image, the more engagement it generates, and the more the company doubles down on the formula. Once this branding is established, it becomes self-protecting. Any critique is reframed as an attack on creativity or self-expression. Fans insist the group is being misunderstood, that critics don't get hip-hop, even though what is being defended is not hip-hop itself, but a diluted stereotype of it. This is how appropriation becomes normalized. Repetition dulls discomfort, and routine turns exploitation into aesthetic preference. At this point, the industry is no longer experimenting, it is copying itself. One group succeeds with a formula, another imitates it louder, and soon the market is flooded with the same stiff movements, hostile expressions, and recycled symbolism. What started as influence becomes a template, and the template becomes the genre in the eyes of casual audiences. This is not evolution. It is stagnation disguised as edge, and it sets the stage for why the backlash keeps coming, even when fans pretend not to see it. The long-term damage of this approach goes far beyond any single controversy or group. When K-pop continues to reward the surface-level performance of hip-hop while ignoring its discipline and history, it trains both idols and fans to accept imitation as mastery. Stereotypes become interchangeable branding tools, passed from one debut to the next, until no one remembers what the genre was supposed to represent in the first place. What remains is a cartoon version of rap, stripped of context, depth, and accountability, yet endlessly defended because it looks edgy on camera. This is why these conversations never truly disappear. Each new generation of groups inherits the same template, and each wave of fans is told that questioning it is negativity rather than critique. Meanwhile, Black fans and culturally literate audiences are left watching the same signals recycled year after year, forced to explain why a pose, a gesture, or a performance language feels disrespectful. The exhaustion builds because the industry refuses to learn. Apologies only appear when clips go viral, not when entire concepts are built on borrowed identity. If K-pop is going to continue drawing from hip-hop, the minimum standard should be respect, not just in words, but in structure. That means treating rap as a craft, not a costume. It means valuing musical command over posturing, collaboration over caricature, and substance over shortcuts. Until that happens, the cycle will repeat, and new groups will keep being pushed into the same hollow mold. If this breakdown made you uncomfortable, that's the point. If it made you think differently about what you're being sold, then this conversation matters. Like the video, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel for the next part, because this isn't the end of the story.